Hi, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of the Explicitly Pro-Life podcast. I'm Kristan Hawkins, and thanks for joining me in Season 2. And today, we are talking in Season 2 Pro-Life 101 about how to talk to your kids and all the little ones about abortion. So I've asked my friend, Tina Whittington, she is the Executive Vice President of Students for Life, to come on because I always go to Tina for all my mom questions anyway. So I figured it'd be much better to have her address this topic than me because she's a much better mother than me. So
that's not true. I'm just a decade ahead of you.
Yeah, she is. Tina's always ahead of me. So I just kind of have to watch what she's doing and going through. And then I know what to expect in the next few years. And I'm already sort of dreading it. But your kids have been like normal and calm. So
pretty much.
Yeah, you haven't had some of the stories I hear from other families. So this is a hard subject, and something that we get asked a lot at Students for Life is, how do you talk to your kids about abortion? We've also noticed in the past where there's been parents who actually get angry that their kids are involved in the pro-life movement, late high school, early high school or late, even middle school. And they'll say, how dare you talk to my kids about abortion? I was purposely not telling them about this. And our response is always like, well, if you're not talking to them about abortion, somebody else is. And we all know who that somebody else is. That's Planned Parenthood. So let's first start off with, give me your parenting credentials. What makes you an expert in these kids, Tina?
I am a mother of 4 children.
Okay.
And that would be my only expertise, is that I've raised 4. 2 are adults now, so and they're okay.
She is a mom of college students, if you can believe it.
2 in college, 2 in high school. So I'm almost done. It doesn't mean I did it perfectly, but I can, give a little bit of feedback.
Yeah, no one's in jail.
No one's in jail. We're all good. Yeah.
Scholarships are good.
So far, so good.
Yeah. So Tina is an expert. I'm a mom of 4, but mine are younger, so I don't feel like I have any expertise in anything besides managing loud noises and working through loud noises. Okay, so when do you remember first talking to your kids? What were their ages? Did you start having this conversation about abortion? And did you start off that way? Maybe you started with something else.
Yeah. So one is I was pregnant in the midst of being a pro-life activist. So like I knew my kids would be born into an activist family. My husband ran Rock for Life. So we knew like this would be something that they would be exposed to. But I did want to wait to talk to them about abortion till it was like age appropriate. So I looked to others, focus on the family and other friends to like find out what should I do as a parent. I think one of the best things you can do is look for mentors who've done it well and like get their advice. And so one of the things was focus on the family that was really like sunk in with me is from a young age, affirm your children in how God made them. And so it was justice. He's my oldest. I'm so glad God created you as a boy because you're a boy and that's awesome. That means you get to grow up to be a man, and men get to, be married and have children and get to do these things. And so just this idea of affirming their value, that they were created with a purpose and an intent and on without mistake. Like you were born a boy at this date and time, and there's a reason for it, and I'm glad. Like it's a thing to celebrate. And then when I got pregnant again, I knew my child needed to know something about what was going on with mom.
Yeah.
And so again, I reached out to friends who had older kids, and I was recommended a book. It's called How Did God Make Me by Matt and Leah Jacobson. And it just goes through in a very child-friendly way. Here's the thing with kids, like you want to give them answers to their questions, but you don't want to give them more information than what they can handle emotionally, psychologically. And so you want to give them an answer, but you don't want to give them more than what they can handle. And so this is a really great book because it just breaks down, hey, apart from mommy comes together with apart from daddy, and the baby's formed. It has some of the Leonard Nilsson pictures throughout the book. So you kind of have this story that, again, God created you with an intent and a purpose. So, those are kind of the basics for me, is affirming life, that their life had purpose, was purpose from the beginning. They weren't a mistake. And then this idea of like, and God forms all of us. So I had really tried to not let my kids see the graphic images, and because some of the stuff we were using at that time did have graphic images. We go to events and there'd be pictures of the aborted babies. So I was really trying to keep them away from that. But when in 2004, I was pregnant with my third. So Justice would have been 3.5 and Mason would have been 2.5. So I had the double stroller pregnant. We were at the March for Women's Lives in Washington, D.C. And it was a great event. We had a lot of pro-life people out there like ministering to women. But there was one group that had brought the huge images of the aborted babies, which I think that's the right crowd for that. But with my kids, I was like, trying to like keep them from seeing it. We went into the bathroom at Smithsonian, because that's what you do when you're in Washington, D.C. If you have to go to the bathroom, you find a Smithsonian. And we came out, and the thing I'd been avoiding with my kids all day, we walk out and it was right there. And Justice, so 3.5, looked up and goes, "Why is that baby broken? Why is it in pieces?" And so in that moment, I recognized, like, I have to give him an answer. Because I think one of the things that a mistake we make as parents is not giving the answer and not giving a truthful answer. We don't want to say like, "Oh, the stork delivered the baby." No, like, let's give them an actual answer. So we talked about it. And I just let them know, like, there are doctors who, sometimes will do this for moms who don't want to have a baby. But it really hit me because at that point I'd been going out a lot on tour with Rock for Life, talking even to Christian kids about the issue of abortion and arguing with them about the humanity of the child in the womb. And for my 3.5-year-old to immediately look at that image and recognize that's a baby, it's broken, and this is wrong, really like woke me up to like the innocence of children and how they really just see the truth for the truth. And so obviously when you've got younger kids, they get exposed to things. The older kids, I don't know if you have that, where you think, "Oh, I'm not going to let them watch this movie or this TV show until they're a certain age." And then the younger one comes along. It's like, well, okay, like I just watch it because it's too hard to like fight it. So I think Justice was our first that we really had that conversation with. And then it just sort of like slowly as the other kids got older, them just being around it, it was something we naturally talked about, and they heard the conversations.
What were some of the questions you got as Justice and the other kids got older? And I mean, what were the questions that they started presenting to you that were the ones where you were like, "All right, now I need to really talk about this"?
I would say the harder questions didn't happen until middle school, when they started like being aware of more things in school. They're all in public school, so hearing things from their friends. So I think the first real pushback was the common pushback, especially from Christians, which is this misplaced compassion. Yeah. Like, what about rape and incest? What about, because we feel so much for that woman who's facing that crisis, then is it okay in this situation? Because what more trauma are we causing because now she has to live with this baby? And so that was where we really had to like break it down and start going deeper to, well, a human being's a human being no matter what, no matter how someone's conceived. And then more towards high school, I even started being more open about our own history. So my dad was conceived in rape, and just like bringing it home for them that these are real human beings, no matter how they're conceived, that have a real future ahead of them if they're not aborted, and have generations ahead of them when they have children, and that directly impacts our family. So that was huge for us.
I think one of the things I know Gunnar struggles with the most is, why don't they know the truth? I thought that's your job, Mom, to tell them the truth. How do they not know? Like, it's killing a baby. I know it's killing a baby. How does the doctor not know? How does the mom not know she's killing her baby? And it's hard because, I think I try to be very careful of not to have a judgmental tone or something that they would pick up towards women who have abortions. She may know, but she may be more scared of a situation that she's in, so she feels like that this is a better thing for her child, to kill her child. And you say those things, and I don't know, Gunnar's face is about as easy to read as mine, so he's like,
why would anyone do that?
Why? I think that's the question I always get is, why? Well, how do they not know the truth?
Yeah, and I think and it just depends on the age, but I think it's that they don't know the truth because no one's told them. Like, your mom and dad like do this work every day, and we've laid it out for you, and but not everybody's parent has explained this to them, so they just don't know. So my third son, Asher, actually, when he would sit down at lunch in middle school, he would watch videos on his phone because they are allowed to have their phones at lunch. So he'd watch YouTube videos, and he was watching the Levitino videos that Live Action did, where it showed the procedures. And I'm not sure why he decided
to the principal's office for that.
No, but he said his friends watched it with him because they're like, "What are you? What is that?" And he was able to explain to them, "Oh, well, this is like an abortion procedure," but it was brand new information to them, but it was like presented in a way. And I think that's it too. Like, you know what? We can't always reach everybody. And you're not in a position as a kid to reach everybody, but you can reach the people around you. And so that woman chose that because maybe she didn't know the full truth. Maybe, people around her were pressuring her to make this decision, and she didn't feel like she could make another decision. But we have no power over that, but what you do have power over is your influence over your peers. And so changing that conversation to, we can't make her change her decision. And we don't know always why. I mean, like, and putting it back on them, you've made bad decisions too. You disobeyed, or you like, why?
See, a much better parent than that.
And explain to them, like, in the moment, sometimes you get scared. Like, I've had my kids lie to me and I know they're lying. And why did you lie? Well, I was afraid of getting in trouble. Well, you wouldn't have gotten in trouble if you would have just told me the truth, but now you lied. And so now actually you are in trouble. Like, I just wanted to know the truth about the situation. And so I think that giving him that, like, why do you make mistakes? Why do you do things you're not supposed to do? We're all in a place where at any moment we can make a wrong decision, and for a myriad of reasons, but we can't maybe influence those people, but we can influence the people around us. And so Asher was able to change people's minds about abortion just by watching that video and talking to his friends about it. And it wasn't like he put it in their face or anything. He just was watching it, and they were like, "Oh, what is that?" So I think trying to turn it. You have influence over. I know Gunner's young, but he's going to come across people, and he knows the truth, and that's it. Once we're equipped with the truth, we kind of have a little bit of a responsibility to find those opportunities to share the truth, so that hopefully if someone that crosses that path and is in a crisis pregnancy, or knows someone who is, they have tools and words to use to help them choose life.
When do you think is an appropriate time to start having the discussion about what abortion is without traumatizing them?
Sure.
Because I think it kind of depends on the kids. Like, Gunner knew, I think at 8, I told Gunner. And we actually did a video, I think about a year ago, of me telling Gunner. And people got really mad online. Like, how dare you describe what happens during an abortion to your 10-year-old son? I was like, well, first of all, it's my son. And I knew he was ready for this information because he's kind of already known for a while. But now my 10-year-old now, not ready for this discussion. Yeah. So and not really interested in having the discussion either. So, but what do you think is the kind of age?
So range? Again, I feel like you have to lay the foundation from very early that God made you. I'm so glad God made you. You're not a mistake. You're on purpose. Everything about you is on purpose. But then Bethany Bomberger just released a book this year. It's called Pro-Life Kids. And it's for all ages. And so it lays out what pro-life is in a very like positive, not with all the procedures, but I think you just need to look at your children and instill certain values when they're young. And then it, like you said, it's determining what they're ready for emotionally, and also like not speeding up to answer questions they haven't asked yet. Like, I never gave my kids more information than what they were asking for or ready for. And so obviously, like you think about like for me, when I was raised by a single mom for the biggest part of my life. And she didn't like to talk about anything. Like, we didn't talk about sex. We didn't talk about having a menstrual cycle. She'd leave books on my bed, little pamphlets. And she'd say, "Oh, I left something on your bed. Could you read that?" And I'd be like, "Okay, Mom." And I'd read it. And I'd come back out and she'd go, "Well, do you have any questions about that?" And I'm like, "Well, obviously you didn't want to talk to me about this. So if I have questions about anything I read, I'm probably not going to ask you." So I think it's like, if we're open and always ready to answer the questions, but not push to give them, more than what they're ready for, or answer questions they're not asking yet. But then there's a balance. Like I said, like obviously if you have a daughter who's, entering into puberty, you want to talk about menstruating and certain things before it happens. So I think it's just making those, looking at what might be happening in the future that they might be exposed to and preparing them for that. Because, if you're going to a public middle school, they are going to be exposed to sex education.
It's like 4th grade, I think now.
It depends on which school you're at. So I think just being prepared to know what are they going to experience that I need to prep them for, and then what are the questions they're asking. I have Justice when he was little. So we've been reading that book, the How Did God Make Me? And it talks about a daddy part and a mommy part. And so, we were getting into the bath. He's getting in the bathtub, and he's like, "What are these for?" And he pointed to his testicles, and I was like, that's the part that keeps the, using the language of the book, like that's where the daddy part is kept until you're ready to be a daddy. And he was like, all right, that's cool. Like it totally made sense. So I think it's like, what are they ready for? Answering the questions they ask, but then also preparing for, you're as the parent, you can foresee what they're going to be coming across, whether it's sex ed in the public school, or they're going to be in certain situations. If you're going to bring them to pray with you at 40 Days for Life, you got to give them some kind of information so they know what they're about to encounter when they're there. So, answering the questions that they're asking, preparing them for the situations they might be going into, but then not giving them more than what they can handle emotionally, psychologically.
Yeah. No, we never had the sex talk out. Maybe that's why we both have 4 kids. I don't think I ever had that talk with my parents.
Did you get a pamphlet?
No, I don't think I got a pamphlet. I started working at the Pregnancy Resource Center, and that was like an eye-opening experience about so many things.
Yeah.
But I was like, Mom really should have had some conversations with me before I started, counseling women. But it's interesting because Gunner's in his he's starting to figure things out. He's getting a little, can everyone just look away while I change?
Yeah.
Although to get rest up the other day, he did pull his pants down to pee in the grass and just did it in front of everybody. And there were like cars buzzing by. I was like, dude, like you need
there was a need there.
You need to cover this up a little bit. But things are starting to I think what Jonathan's been doing is kind of just slowly having different conversations with him about, because he's entering puberty and things are starting to grow and gross stuff is happening. So I'm not looking forward to puberty at all. It's like the one thing with boys. I love everything about being a boy mom except what I know is coming.
But again, it's answering the questions they have, like being the person who's seeing ahead to the future of the questions that maybe they aren't asking yet, but you need to prepare them for. What are they going to walk into? And I think like people are scared to bring their children into pro-life activism. And I think, again, bring them and tell them what they need to know at that moment. If they are 8 years old and you want to bring them to 40 Days for Life, bring them and say, we're out here and we're praying that these moms who are pregnant, who don't know what to do, will get help they need. Or
no one's going to come up to your 8-year-old child and be like, so what do you think about that abortion procedure? Like no one's going to no one's going to have that conversation with your child. Why do you think, you mentioned bringing your kids to praying in an abortion facility or pro-life activism. Do you think that's important in how you make a pro-life activist? Because I think that's also another question too. If you're in the movement, you want your children to, hopefully that your children wouldn't have to fight in this movement. But if abortion's still continuing, you want them to kind of continue your legacy, continue to fight in the movement. How do you think is the best way to do that without turning them off? Because I'm always afraid of going too hard and then them going, I don't want anything to do with the pro-life movement when I grow up.
Yeah. So for me, it's been when they were really young and I couldn't leave them behind, just bringing them and letting them engage how they want to engage, ask the questions. Do you know what we're here for? Do you know what's going on? And making sure I'm explaining things as we go so they have a good understanding of why we're there, what's going on around us, why people maybe, when my second oldest, he went to the Women's March with us, the first one. And because he was like, I just want to go and observe. I want to see like, what is it like? And so he had a lot of questions on the way home. Like, gosh, someone was carrying a sign that said this. Can you and I didn't make him, we were there talking to people. We were holding the Abortion Betrays Women banner. He was off to the side. And for me, it's like, I open the doors for engagement for them now that they're older and say, do you want to come? Do you want to participate? I want you there. But then I also let them have some of the options of like saying opting out when that's a possibility. But I also let them engage how they want to engage. If they feel like, I just want to observe, which my Mason is more of an observer.
Yeah, he was there this weekend.
Yeah, he was there. He likes to come and he wants to be a part of it, but he is very introverted.
He won't be picking up a bullhorn anytime
He
soon.
will not be picking up a bullhorn. He will probably not get into any kind of serious debate. He won't probably go up, but he wants to be there and be a part of it. And so I think it's that too, recognizing your children have different personalities. And, like you said, between your two, one oldest was 10, next one's 10, you're going to have to approach things differently with even how you talk about abortion. Inviting them in, giving them an opportunity. And then when they're little, bringing them along and explaining it so they see what's going on and what the difference it makes for them to be there.
Yeah, it's funny with Gunnar. I don't want him to go because he's too militant. Like I'm afraid of the words that will come out of his mouth. So Bear will have a stuffed animal if he would come, but Gunnar would be too militant.
He would talk to people. And
he would talk to people and might turn them off. So.
He needs a little apologetics training.
He needs definitely apologetics training, but it's we're homeschooling, so he doesn't have to win somebody over in an argument because everybody already agrees with him that he talks to.
That's true.
So I'm like, you really need to talk to people who really disagree with you to figure out how you're going to win these arguments because you're not going to win like that, buddy.
Yeah.
So, all right. What are the other things that we need to know about as parents, as grandparents, talking about abortion? I mean, maybe about church. Like that would be a question is how could the church take a more proactive role? Because the church could, if parents aren't going to do it, the church certainly could do it. The youth group could be doing this and having these conversations. But I know a lot of people in the churches are like, we don't want to upset any of our members or our parishioners by talking about these issues.
So I think there's a lot of ways to engage and encourage your church to engage so that they reach, especially the youth. Because I agree, like there important conversations that need to be had that even need to be reinforced by the church. I know for me with my kids, I would say something to them a million times and then they go to church and they come and say, well, Miss Vanessa said da 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 da. And I'm like, so it comes out of Miss Vanessa's mouth and it's the actual word of God, but when I say it, like it doesn't mean anything. Like what's going on here? So I think there are a lot of ways to engage. One is like support the Pregnancy Resource Center. I feel like that's just such an easy way into talking about this. Also inviting members who have had an abortion, who've walked through a healing ministry and are ready to speak from the pulpit about their experience. I think that opens up a lot of doors for us to, hear someone who actually walked through it. There's no condemnation. And as a matter of fact, I might have felt that, but now I'm healed and set free and, here's my story. And then engaging, as a youth group, do a fundraiser for the PRC, do their walkathon, come to the March for Life. I think it's points of engagement a lot of times that mean more. When we talk about this all the time with Students for Life, we want to give our students an experience. When they come to Washington, D.C. with us and get the training and do the activism, it sinks in a way that just hearing about it at home or watching a video isn't going to do. And so I think the more engaged the church can be in actually doing some of the work, I think it sinks in on a different level. And there's so many ways. But I think the easiest way is 1, PRC, support your Pregnancy Resource Center. And 2 is get someone who's post-abortive and healed, especially if it's someone in your congregation that's ready to get up to the pulpit and talk about that. Like let them talk on the Sanctity of Life Sunday or, whatever it is, or October's the Sanctity of Life month, like give that voice an opportunity. And I think it will do a lot for opening the doors for that conversation.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, I think that's important. If you do lead, a youth ministry within your church, within your parish, to have those conversations with the young people, because
that's how I became pro-life. I was raised in a secular home. I'm an only child. I'm the youngest of all my cousins. So I never saw anyone pregnant. So it was just this sort of fuzzy concept. Like I knew people got pregnant, had babies, but I never was close to it. And so our youth minister did a whole presentation on the value of life. We saw the Leonard Nelson pictures and we listened to a testimony from Carol Everett on an audio cassette of her, what was happening in the abortion facilities. And that to me was like, oh my gosh, this is a human being with value and is worth protecting and doing something about.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what to do about it, but like that was a turning point for me because it wasn't a conversation. Not everyone that goes to youth group is living in a Christian home.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I wouldn't have had that knowledge and my eyes wouldn't have been opened without my youth minister doing that kind of presentation during a youth group. And it was totally, we were high school. It was appropriate for, what we were facing. I'd had friends who later I heard talking about considering an abortion. Like, and I don't think I would have known. I mean, I watched Dirty Dancing and didn't even realize that she had an abortion. I think I was in 8th grade when it came out and I watched the whole movie. It didn't click with me that was an abortion experience in that movie until I went through this with my high school youth minister where we talked about abortion. And then I watched it again later and I was like, oh my gosh, this is an abortion. She had an abortion. Like I don't know. Like you can't expect kids to like understand things if they've never been exposed or explained.
Yeah.
And then I think other thing, when you're saying another thing that I would encourage parents to do is to talk about how in our family would we deal with an unplanned pregnancy situation? Because it's something that I've talked to my kids about. Yeah. Like, we have certain expectations of how we're supposed to live as a family, as Christians, but do sometimes people fail or make mistakes? Absolutely. And so what does that mean for our family? What if, Justice, you were to get someone pregnant? What would we do? How would we deal with that? What do you think? Because you want your kids to come to you. Just because they've been raised in a pro-life home doesn't mean if they face that moment of crisis, they won't consider an abortion. Yeah. And so I think opening those doors in advance.
Absolutely.
And say,
have that conversation before the crisis. I think,
and let them see our door is open. Our door is open to talk about abortion. Our door is open to talk about sex. Our door is open to talk about mistakes that you may have made and feel regretful or shameful about. Because our job is to see you succeed. A parent's job is to see their kids succeed, and the most important role we play in that is giving them the opportunity to come to us and know that there's an open door, because without that, they're going to go somewhere else. They're going to go to their friends. They're going to go to their favorite teacher at school.
They're going to go to Planned Parenthood.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I think we see that a lot of girls, especially to Christian rock concerts, of people saying, well, I chose abortion and I don't tell, they're still, and they knew what they were doing was wrong. But they felt like they had to get out of this crisis situation and they couldn't go to their family, and that they were going to get more judgment if they went to their family.
Yeah. And I would say that too, the churches, there's a really great ministry called Embrace Grace that works with churches to help them become more friendly and help girls who face those situations to walk through it in grace with the church instead of feeling like they have to leave the church. Yeah. So it's just another thing as a church you can engage in.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for coming on and giving all of your excellent parenting advice today.
We'll see.
I was taking a couple of notes. And thank you all for joining us. I hope you'll share this episode with friends, family that are maybe starting to have this discussion, or make sure you bookmark it. And when you're getting ready to have this discussion with your children, that you come back to it, because guarantee you this is something that you're going to be thinking about, because we know this is something we as pro-lifers have to be proactive in talking about with our children and our grandchildren about. So thanks so much for joining us on Explicitly Pro-Life and this season 2 Pro-Life 101. Bye guys. What?